واحد، اثنان، ثلاثة.
Welcome. If you live it, a pathway to freedom. Those who have been joining us for weeks, those who are newcomers, you have found a book, a program, videos, podcast episodes, content on the website, ifyouliveit.com, all dedicated to transcending the ego, overcoming fear in all of its forms, growing closer to God is the entire goal. This pathway can take you all the way to being love for the world, unconditional love oozing out of you all the way to that final doorway, if that's what you're here for, if that's what you're searching for in this lifetime, or if you're just looking for a little more happiness, if you're looking to actually be happy when you wake up, joy throughout the day, if you're looking for an opportunity to be motivation for the world, you found this place. If you're just looking to be motivated, you found this chapter. We are going through every week in these videos on Mondays. The first 4 months, 3-4 months of 2025 is a new chapter a week, all from the book If You Live It, all dedicated to transcend lowering aspects of what we call being human, from fear, shame, desire, guilt, grief, apathy, remorse, pride, envy, cravingness, wantingness, desiringness, how to transcend those through the gifts of surrender. Then we move into embracing higher states of consciousness that are filled with power and not force. And those are things we've already looked at, like courage, how we've looked at neutrality, the gifts of both. Now we're into willingness. We're into chapter 7, step 7. What you have here in this video is a short introduction by me, Mason Wooldridge, the author of this book, the voice, the mouth for this information, but a channel to deliver it to you. The entire book on these platforms are being released in a way where you have an online sponsor to work these steps. These steps are the same 12 steps that came from the original gift, deliverance to creators of Alcoholics Anonymous. They've been recontextualized, how we speak about them, how we use them, how we talk about them, what they're a part of this larger thing that we're calling If You Live It. But the root of them, the power of them, is the absolute unconditional love that they come from, that they sponsor, that they bring with it. And so these online videos, these in particular, these chapter videos, these are for me to introduce to you what this is going to be, what this step looks like, a little bit more about what we're looking at in particular at the root of this step, which is willingness, motivation. And then we go into the book where the book is read for you. You see it on the screen. And that's these videos. Wednesdays, we dive deeper into one of these categories. So you will have a deeper dive into the power and experience of willingness. And then Friday, we always have a thought that's a spiritual truth, a motivating truth, a religious truth. And that's kind of how the weeks are broken up now. Once these 12 steps, these 12 chapters are represented online in the first third of 2025, the book is available at that point in time where you could have it in your hands in that particular capacity. This content is always available free on ifyouliveit.com. At the content section, you can find the If You Live It chapters posted along with this. It's also available in podcast form. So there is no barrier for you to start working these steps if you have found them and you're searching for just a deep breath of life. You can start working them. In April, we will start having our in-person and online meetings. Online will be twice a month, every other week. In person, twice a month, every other week. 4 meetings a month to start with. And then the goal is to have people that have worked these steps start their own meetings in their own communities, in their own groups, using this platform, this book, this work, these steps, these videos, whatever it is, as an aid to your personal groups. And again, these groups are not for a spiritual leader to take over and dominate their opinion. That's not what this is. It's not what I am. These groups are a way to bring people together to help them work through the steps themselves. So until we are at a place where there are plenty of sponsors for everyone that wants to go through this in physical form, these videos, these workshops, these lectures, this content is available to you as a virtual sponsor. Again, my name is Mason Wooldridge. I have an entire life outside of what you see here, of what you see this platform as, with a family, child, wife, dogs, home. business. But this is what I'm here to do on this earth long term. It is not to tell you you have to do something. It is not to beat over your head that you should do something. It is to be an example for you, to show you that what Jesus has said, what Krishna has said, what others have said are true. It's real. It's possible. You can have a connection with God, and you do that through emulating them. And that's what this pathway is. You can know God in your life. You can look around in your life, around you in every capacity that may seem hellish right now, that may seem like you're a victim of something right now, that may seem like the whole world is against you or all of this is happening to you. But the reality is, when you chase after God, when you grow closer to God, when you start applying these principles in your life and these steps in your life and you work them, you start realizing nothing happens to you, it happens for you. And in that is the absolute gift and power of what we call choice. Choice is the determinant. Choice puts us in one path or another, in one direction or another, for the opportunity to work off karma. This life's, past lives, every life. This is not something we do once. We do this thing many, many, many times until we figure out that where we are is not a place that we need to come to anymore, because what we've learned is that we are God. And you yourself can have that same realization, and not something that is just a momentary aha, but an actual way of life, an actual way of being in this world, but not of it, a way where you are living your life like a prayer, where you know what it is to surrender, you know what it is to forgive. You're coming from a place of absolute gratitude coming from you, not because of you, but because you got out of the way. The key to this entire thing is helping you get out of your own way. You think you're your thoughts. You think you're your feelings, your emotions, your fears, your desires, your wants, your cravings. You're not those things. You're hypnotized by those things, with the sponsor of those things being the ego, the mind, one and the same thing. Mind, brain, not the same thing. Mind is what we would call the software on top of the hardware of this body and this brain. The mind is what allows awareness to a degree, and really the awareness of separateness. What we are and how we work in this world is constantly aware of much more consciously and subconsciously than what the mind allows it to have the freedom to believe it is. And that's what this is about. That's what this step is about. That's what this chapter is about. If you've gotten to this point so far, what we have done, and you've worked the steps to this point, then you well know that we have looked at a threefold surrender process. When someone says surrender, how do you do it? Go back. Steps 1, 2, and 3, check it out. And we're in the heart of forgiveness. And what we've done to move into forgiveness from surrender is we've looked at our life. We've put it down on paper, where we are resentful, who we've wronged, how we've been a part of that, how we are the sponsor of that. Then we had a conversation with another human being, God and ourselves, out loud, where we shared that information. Then we became entirely ready to take all that we found, all that we shared, all of what the world of anonymous meetings would call defects of character, and we have given them to a power greater than ourselves and prepared ourselves to give them into this step 7, which is where we ask God to please remove these things. And what we're asking for is, we're not asking God to remove all memory of these things. We're asking God to remove all belief systems that we are these things. And we are halfway to gratitude, because what we have already looked at in steps 4 and 5, what we did in step 6 to move us into this step 7, is we have primed the gratitude muscles. We have moved into a world that we're talking about here and experiencing willingness. Willingness and motivation are one and the same thing, pretty much. Willingness is a higher degree of consciousness than courage or neutrality, both unbelievably wonderful places to come from. But when you move into willingness, you move into a place where what you are is motivation for the world. And not because of the words you use, but because the decisions you have made and the steps you are taking are worth people following. Because the byproducts of such are blessings. They're blessings for you, for your family, for your friends, for the world around you, for your job, for your community, for your county, for your state, for your country, for the world. The greatest leaders we have among us, in where I'm coming from, the United States of America, or from around the world, most commonly come from a place of willingness, a place where, because they know what they are, they see that potential in you. And because they see that potential in you, they build into you, and they're not threatened by you. They're not threatened by your performance. They're not threatened by your excellence. They're not threatened by your potential, because they realize really innately, subconsciously, that they're no longer coming from a place of scarcity, but that what the reality of God is that it's abundance. And I don't mean abundance from the sake of everybody's a billionaire. I mean abundance from the sake of insecurity is a liar. Fears are liars. These lower states are illusions. And from a particular vantage point, all is an illusion, but you don't know that yet. Maybe you'll see that. Maybe you'll know that. If you work these steps integrally from start to finish, you forgive everyone for everything. You surrender over all that's arising into your awareness. You come from a place of gratitude. You serve your fellow man. You serve your community. You help in any way you possibly can. You will be doing things, taking steps, embracing a pathway where God is there waiting to be present for you. Finding this book, finding this chapter, finding this step is not an accident. I appreciate all who have been on this journey so far and all who are about to embark on this journey. This is just the beginning. We are just building a catalog of information to help people here. We haven't even started the meetings, and already at the point of recording this, there's close to 17,000 people that have subscribed to this video. Thousands and thousands of people visiting the website and checking things out. Do yourself a favor, dive in. If you found this, it's not an accident. If you resonate with it, it's not an accident. It doesn't mean you have to do this right now. It doesn't mean you have to just blindly jump into something and take this on as a belief system. I don't want you to believe anything that's taking place here. I want you to do what's taking place here. It's free. I'm asking for no oaths, no subscriptions. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. But if you have a yearning inside of yourself to know God, to be able to answer the question, is God real? Not because you read it somewhere, because there's a probability that that might be so, but because you see the reality of God present, manifest in your awareness at all times. That's knowing God is real. It's being outside of the mind. It's chasing after God. It's pursuing enlightenment. This spiritual journey is not for the faint of heart. And when you choose God and you pursue enlightenment and you set your intent north on a life that could be more amazing than you have any idea right now, and you have a desire, I don't want to come back here. I don't want to do this again. I don't even know if I believe anything that he's saying. Again, I don't care if you believe it. The reality is this is not a one-time deal, folks. We're in a purgatorial world at a particular time in a particular realm that gives us the gift of choice, where this time we can choose God or not. Other places are not so fortunate and not so lucky. Check us out on Wednesday, where we dive deeper into this. Check us out on Friday, where we will be breaking down the realities of God from all kinds of different angles. I am so thankful that you found this, that this might have been an answered prayer to you, or that this might be something that you investigate because you know someone else in your life might need what we're talking about, might be searching for what we're looking at and breaking down. Again, if you live it, A Pathway to Freedom, Chapter 7, Step 7, Experiencing Willingness. Many blessings. Let's get busy living. Chapter 7, Experiencing Willingness. Humility was the key. Step 7 is a big-time step in this program. Not saying the rest of the steps aren't important or immensely valuable to work through, but if you've reached this phase of the program, it means you've worked through the steps it takes to get here. You have arrived at a point where you can look back at your time of surrendering and move into forgiveness, where seeing your life for what it once was and for what it is now has moved you one step closer to the opportunity for moving into what it can be. In Step 7, we ask God to remove from our life the burdens of past mistakes, past judgments, character defects, pains, resentments, angers, frustrations, and all other aspects of the ego that we once believed to be what we are. We're not just asking God to do something with these things from our psyche. We're asking God to remove the residue of them from ever being in attendance as a belief system about how we would have described to the world and to ourselves the exact nature of our life. In steps 1 through 3, we worked a threefold angle of surrender into the mix, where we realized we needed help, came to believe that we couldn't do it on our own, and then finally asked God for help with something that, left to our own devices, would have only persisted ad infinitum. In steps 4 and 5, We looked back over our life and put down on paper what we found. We then took what we found and cycled it all through a different lens of examining the past. Once we took a full inventory of past moments in time worth surrendering over, we shared what we found with ourself, God, and another human, so as to speak out loud what we once kept internally so tight as who we believed ourselves to be. Moreover, once taking these steps and arriving at this chapter, and inevitably step 7, what proceeded immediately this step was once again becoming ready and priming our mind for the next big leap of faith, which we will be presented here at the end of our dialogue. For close to a decade, from the age of about 20 or so to about 32, what characterizes willingness as a level of consciousness is what I pretended to be for the world to see. I pretended to be motivational, aspirational, thankful, and humble. I was doing my best to fake the magic that comes from a life of helping others, while doing my best internally to find my own prosperity out of it. I held on to judgments about life, anger over not being where I thought I deserved to be in life, resentments of others for getting what I wanted before me, and always close by was the hope that someone else would come into my life and make it all better. Willingness as a level of consciousness means a whole lot more than the basic definition of this word as defined by dictionary.com as consent or readiness to do something. When we look at willingness as a level of consciousness, what we find is that willingness means to have the ability to help someone move on to greater and better things by just the presence of your intent for them, because that's what works for you. You're just sharing what you are because it works for you innately. When you don't need anything, it is easier to help someone else find what they are looking for. Think Tony Robbins in his prime, or place any other public speaker or motivator in his place, and you'll know what willingness represents in a life form. Beyond the ability to be all motivation at this phase of one's evolution towards God, willingness also means the person occupying this level has the innate ability to strive towards greater things for not only themselves, but for larger groups of people as well. Some of the greatest CEOs and public servants we have calibrate in or around willingness. This level of life is also the first time that by just being you, the ability to bring together what's needed to create change on a larger scale is present and accounted for. The energy of this level moves out before your very steps and has a way of seamlessly delivering whatever is needed in front of you as it's needed for whatever comes next. This stage of evolving towards love is accomplishable for anyone working these steps and is not at all an impossible place to get to. If you have followed the steps up until now, continue to work the steps from this point forward. Forgive yourself and everyone else in the world for everything that comes your way, and fully embrace gratitude as a way of life, and you will at the very least end up as someone who embodies willingness as your level of moving throughout life. At this level, we also see the altruistic side of life become self-evident where someone feels called to be a police officer, firefighter, EMT, teacher, or excellent life coach. Willingness is characterized by having the ability to put the needs of others above your own, in both scope and magnitude, and done so in large part because for the first time in life, you realize that there is no such thing as scarcity, and that by giving another what they need, you're actually helping yourself be more successful. At this level, there's almost nothing you can't accomplish by focusing your intent on something to get it accomplished. All that I just described was what I pretended to be and what I wanted the world to think I was. For fits and starts, I was aspects of this level of consciousness even when I found myself in hell. But I wasn't this level of consciousness in reality, which is very far from any aspects of hell. Like what was stated in the previous chapter, if something calibrates at this frequency or above it, the energy coming forth has the ability to lift someone out of despair, feelings of anguish, and from overall states of depression if they find themselves within its presence. Like a church's praise and worship time, the energy of this atmosphere is what lifts someone up. Not the words within the songs or even the notes within the music. It's the entirety of the moment and the intent of the moment that creates a healing and uplifting atmosphere. More people attend non-denominational churches in the U.S. because of their praise and worship time and how it makes them feel, not because of the person doing the preaching. Not all motivators or company leaders lead from a place of such magnitude, but the ones who truly calibrate at these levels are no doubt the same people others choose to emulate through weekend retreats designed to teach leadership and leadership books written about important motivators throughout time. A coach who comes from this place of love is able to transform a team who lost more than they won last year into winners this year, but not through strategy and the X's and O's, but through being the change the team needed to stop playing for themselves and start playing for the sake of the team's success. If you find a life coach who resonates at this level, not only are they problem solvers at heart, but they truly believe in your potential based on what they know their own potential to be. Another beautiful thing about calibrating at this level is for the first time, it truly feels like something is guiding you. At this level, any accomplishment is possible, including either using your own power to accumulate wealth or using your power to bring wealth to an entire nation. The best leaders from around the world have a shared level of consciousness in and around willingness. Truths. The Chanda Yoga Upanishad. Things of the world are transitory. If one dies without first having realized the self, there is no happiness here or hereafter. The Tao Te Ching. As fresh as morning breeze, feeling reborn, I wander here and there without a care in the world. Let others chase after wealth. I am content with the gifts provided by Mother Tao. The Gospel of Mark. Go and sell what you have, and give the money to the poor. Then you will have riches in heaven. The Dhammapada. If you wish to be free from old age and rebirth, become an island unto yourself, and eliminate all of your imperfections. Contemplating on truth. Realizing the self looks different in different religions. Realizing the self is experienced by many as hearing about God, or Jesus, or Krishna, or the Buddha, or Allah, or whatever name one holds on to in their part of the world. However, the subjective realization of the self has nothing to do with religion or names, titles, or any other definable separator contained within religious text. If one continually searches for the self within, they will find it. But if one searches for the self outside of their inner being, they'll have to settle for only shared definitions within religious pursuits, mostly defined by others' experiences of God, and maybe, just maybe, have a moment or two in their life when reality defies rational explanation. I spent the majority of my life looking for happiness from the world around me, or from the love of a person who happened to be in my life romantically, only to continue that search for completion long after the final farewell cannon was fired on my relationship, or when the new car smell wore off the upholstery. The illusory moment of realization hit me when I found the happiest I had been in many years was not when I had the most amount of money, a girlfriend to call my love, new and fashionable clothes, or the latest designer sunglasses. No, happiness filled my being because my attachment to those things was leaving me. And what was replacing these transitory artifices of the world was a willingness to trust in that which created me, and more precisely, to trust that whatever created me would also provide all I need, all the time, which includes happiness. Once this truth was stumbled upon and the clouds parted from my previous view of what happiness meant to me, I began to realize that the self had always been there and will never leave, because we are one, forever and ever. Amen. The good news is, God, the self, the Holy Spirit, it's all the same thing in different aspects. And because the awareness of this fact is apparent within this current reality of life, it's present in your life even if you have never looked for it. God is always present and always everything at once. Until you see that or choose to not judge that, you're only playing with your religion's understanding of God, which is very different from actually experiencing God. Understanding trumps ignorance, but experience trumps understanding every time. Growing older when compared to youth has its advantages and disadvantages. With age comes wisdom, but with youth comes energy. With age comes experience, but with youth comes first times. The list for both ends of the age spectrum can go on and on. However, both being older and younger carry along with them something in common worth noting: differing context. As a young man, I chased wealth because the world said I should. I chased financial prosperity because my ego said I should. I was reckless with love, ignorant of faith, repugnant towards advice, and downright hostile towards the gifts of Mother Tao. As a youth, I knew what the world was and I knew what I wanted from it, even though looking back, I can see how clueless I was for many years. Today, I have a different context of understanding with regards to life that even a decade ago, one built on the same foundation of chasing after something. However, today, what the world and the ego says is valuable holds no sway over me. And without chasing after the world as a prime directive these days, I am left with the experiences of contentment and prosperity as primary operating mechanisms. The context of existence today has changed from yesteryear, despite the sins of my past once being so prominent. Today, through a contemplative lifestyle and dedication to truth, what has become clear to me is that chasing after wealth creates circles, while being content with what one is has a magical way of drawing straight lines from one perfect moment to the next perfect moment. As the morning breeze of fresh perspective runs across my face today, I am now continually reborn with the promise of what every day could have in store. And I wander from room to room without a care in the world, and all because I let others chase after acquisition while I chase after God instead. In the context of life today, I see lasting happiness is an option for anyone and at the same time cannot be paid for. But minor moments of excited surprise can. And conversely, the pursuit of pleasure for pleasure's sake never leads a man directly to Mother Tao, but towards something far less enjoyable in the long run. It's simple. You cannot serve two masters with equal vigor. So either the world is your king, or pursuing truth is what rules the roost. For years, I gathered bits and pieces of clothing from all over the world. If someone was to ask me what my personal style was, I'm not sure I could have answered the question, and it would have taken some consideration. I had everything from tailored suits and wingtips, Vans and cut-off jean shorts, to khakis and polos. I had athletic shoes that totaled over 15 in count, and I had hats far too many to ever wear, most of which weren't worn more than once. I collected fragments of styles along my life and created a hodgepodge of fashion, but most days I could be found in a white V-neck t-shirt, Levi's jeans, and an old pair of Chucks. Then, out of nowhere, I was called to a life of service and tight space, and I had to get rid of everything I spent years collecting, including clothes, but also everything else a person collects to live in this world. At first, I was planning to sell it all and put the money towards a chosen endeavor. But then, the Holy Spirit instructed me to give everything away free of payment. As it all unfolded in the beginning, I wasn't sure why I was supposed to give it all away. But I eventually listened to the inner knowingness and dispersed what I owned far and wide, the result of which has been life transforming. From listening to the message that filled my heart and then living out that message with action, heaven suddenly was made clear to me in an experienceable way. And the rest, as they say, is history. The beautiful thing about life is God never forces anyone to do anything. But when you listen to the sometimes offbeat requests made by the Creator, heaven becomes an everyday experience. Unbeknownst to me at the time of freely parting with a life's worth of stuff, I was being groomed to see how far I was willing to listen to the Spirit of God speaking internally within my being. As time crept along over the next several years, it wasn't just clothing I was asked to give away, but every dollar in my possession. And every dollar more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. And at this point of writing this here, I have been beyond broke more than 4 times since listening to God about being of service through giving away earthly possessions. The truth is, one needs not things to be happy, nor obvious choices for dinner to be fed. From firsthand experience, I can relate. When you give away what you think makes you you, one finds out you're anything but you. A man can spend his entire life working to rid himself of his imperfections, only to realize just after physical death there were no imperfections to let go of. Only choices worth surrendering over and not worth repeating another time. The root of imperfection is not imperfection, but infinite love. All content is based upon and arises out of an ultimate and absolute context, which is why imperfection is not based on its opposite or its likeness, but on that which created choice to begin with. Because without choice, one could never choose differently next time. Seeing imperfection is entirely based upon one's own perspective at the time of the choice, and one's perspective is entirely based upon one's consciousness level. And one's consciousness level is based upon a myriad of factors, none of which being imperfect, but more precisely, misguided and naive at the time. If you desire to reach enlightenment as a goal for this life or the next, and or move towards the light more than towards the dark, or to see the world as Christ did, or just make it through a day without cursing your brother, becoming an island unto yourself is a way to accomplish these goals. So, what does it mean to become an island unto yourself? Quite simply, it means to live your life like a prayer, while simultaneously surrendering over any fear to God that arises in the ever-persistent moment of now. This may sound like a lot of work or even total nonsense, but in truth, it's not work or nonsense at all, only conscious decision-making fueled by loving intent. One can be an island unto themselves and thereby free of old age and rebirth when daily surrender leads the island builder into a consciousness level of transcendence over the direction and pull of the ego. We don't rid ourselves of imperfections by neglecting or walking past them, but by seeing them for what they are, waves against the shore and nothing more. The island is the context, but until one learns how to move throughout the day in a surrendered fashion, the content of daily choices one may have while on an island, like chopping down coconuts, taking walks on a beach, watching sunsets and sunrises, these will be seen only as aspects of life repeating itself while leading towards old age and death, and not as aspects of life that help one transcend having to choose old age and death again next time. Instructions for Step 7. As the next step that follows 6, we take the same approach with this one. We find a quiet place secluded from the noise of the outside world, and we read the step in the prayer that goes along with it internally first. Once we are ready to take the step to completion, we say the step out loud and repeat the prayer as well, both in earnest and with faith applied. Once you have taken this step, you are now ready to move into the last 2 aspects of this program, which fall under the banners of forgiveness and gratitude. In this step, the person taking it is all that's needed to make it happen. Once completing this step by saying out loud what you have already said internally, put 15 minutes on a timer and think about all that has taken place during your time with these steps so far. Step 7. Lord, please remove from my life the scars of the past, all of my attachments to what I once believed myself to be. Allow me to see you more clearly moving forward, and provide me the grace to forgive myself, you, and the world for where I once felt I was wronged. Step 7 Prayer. Thank you for the gift of surrender, the blessings of forgiveness, and for the promise of gratitude to come as a way of life. I love you. Thank you for loving me more than I love myself.